In the summer of 2024, 12 of the greatest minds in the history of video game development, design, and theory gathered in the woods of Southern Oregon to discuss the modern gaming industry and the emergence of artificial intelligence technology. This is a series of conversations between old friends, old men now, men who have shaped the gaming world as we know it today, and whose innovations will continue to influence how we play for generations to come. Episode 5, AI, Machine Learning, and the Future.
Steve, you had
Yeah, I mean, television, while there, are so many more choices now than there were when we were kids, it's still nothing like games.
in what way is it nothing?
Volume, yeah. I mean, how many TV shows are there right
you
now?
include Netflix and Amazon?
100,
Yeah. You include
how many
Netflix
games
and
are
Amazon?
there right now? 2 million? So I've been kind of thinking about this discoverability issue, and if AI is sort of the culprit in turning everyone into a creator such that we'll be flooded with an infinite number of choices, maybe AI is the solution in terms of like agents that can be trained to point us toward games that we'll like based on our previous tastes.
We use Slack in our company, and we have one channel on our Slack. It's just recommendations, games, movies, whatever. And we all know each other, really small group, and the recommendations I get from there are better than anywhere else. But these people that I work with, you can easily train an AI to know about as much about me as they do. Not as much as my kids or my wife, whatever. But I think a group of AIs could eventually be trained to give me excellent recommendations.
I'm starting with TMI, Ron. No, but maybe agents will solve it. I mean, the traditional way this is solved is through mavens and word of mouth, right? So you know somebody, you trust them, they tell you about something that they played, like Will's channel, and then you try it.
Well, there's also all of the...
But we need more of those people who are good at that, finding that, who are really searching for it and finding it. It's not just completely a random pachinko ball kind of thing.
The algorithms that are on, like Amazon Prime and Netflix now, I find those helpful. I find IMDb ratings, probably more helpful because if it's above like a 7, then and then certainly we'll find something interesting in it. But it feels to me like, AI's got to be able to be better than that, particularly if I trust it. Because
if AI could fix my inbox, I would believe it. Yeah. Not yet.
But
it's not fixing my inbox.
Like this is the worst it's ever going to be. Like Facebook's got my number. Okay, I buy so many things from Facebook now, and I'm always seeing stuff. It's done a great job of
and YouTube got me. It found me in a way I didn't know.
What's that?
YouTube algorithm nailed me to the wall with an interest I didn't possibly understand.
Yes, it was interesting.
I have a suggestion for that. For Facebook, every now and then I post a comment saying, I really want to buy chocolate-covered rutabagas. That keeps the algorithms off balance.
That's an art form.
You just said it in front of my phone. Thank you very much.
So in terms of your initial question about have games as an art form true, I'm going to be infected by Gordon's and Rod's optimism and say, absolutely. We have more games. We have more diverse games. We have uses of games that were never previously considered. I mean, medical games, simulation games, games that permeated. We have creativity being fed back into the games industry from other fields, where the medical field may do something that comes back into games. We have a generation of people who have grown up with games. I mean, back when we did it, even 10 years ago, less than half the world population had played games. Now we have over half the world population playing games, out of which 1% to 2% become creators. It's all good in terms of the art form because we have a more experience, we have broader knowledge, we have deeper knowledge, we have a much greater audience, we have much greater distribution, you need a much greater, and you need much more capital being distilled to support the next generation. Like I can't say anything but the article has been really put together. You've been talking today about how there's a flood of crap, which, there's stuff that is big. For instance, there's IMV with Netflix. So those of you really depend on this teleroute. You discovered when they had 10 million people, 30,000 people created stuff that was valuable to other people. Of those, only 3,000 really mattered. They were the ones who built it. Now apply that from 10 million to 3 to 4 billion people consuming games. We are in terms of the games art form, the art of the possible, and the number of, if you need 1 million monkeys working on the Mac or whatever it is, creating a game, well, we have 4,000 million monkeys, so that's 4,000 great games. So yes, the art form has, by definition, improved.
Yep.
The issue that you've been covering since then, I'm not as optimistic about because of discoverability, especially because, and unfortunately, I don't agree with you that it's the worst we've got, because the countermeasures to try and fool the rating systems, which is a war that has been going on in Amazon, and you can certainly tell people about this.
Yeah.
So discoverability is still an issue, but in terms of the quality and the quantity of good to great games, we have seen an explosion. I mean, by a couple orders of magnitude.
So it's like, why would you?
If you can do it.
If you can do it, right?
If you haven't heard it, Mitch's podcast.
Yeah, Mitch's podcast.
Oh, really?
On that one deal.
Mitch Lasky?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
You haven't heard his podcast?
No.
It's I have the scripts. They're pretty.
That particular one, I there was all kinds of water polo in that deal. I had never perceived from the outside.
I'd like to offer a counter argument to your point that I don't think is compelling, but still deserves consideration. That is that, in effect, yes, we have 1 million monkeys on 1 million typewriters, and yes, they will eventually type Shakespeare if they are typing randomly. But our monkeys are not typing randomly. They're typing what they already know. And so they're making the same game over and over and over. And we're not going to get Shakespeare out of them.
I want to say there's too much optimism going on because
It was a pivot to something I thought was interesting, which is, so many of you were board game aficionados. I happened to not be one of those. I was the guy who knew the rules to team handball and nobody else did. So I was the other end of the spectrum. But for the most part, when we entered this business, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. Nobody did. And the answer was we had to, as a result, evolve that process and develop our own sense of wisdom. And we were, as you described it, people don't seem to spend as much time talking to each other about this as they did in the old days. I think it's because we had to. It just wasn't possible to operate, to make any progress at all if we hadn't talked to each other. The difference is that my kids and your kids have grown up with this stuff since it existed. They don't even think it's a normal part of the world to that. Okay. And so they have thousands and thousands and thousands of experience hours playing games that we never had.
Okay.
And I think it changes fundamentally the games they make. So although I do think, Chris, that they are trying to make the game that they loved when they were a kid over again, they're doing it in a way that extends it and extrapolates, sometimes in ways that are unrecognizable.
So you see the expansion as including enough little runners out into weird space.
Because they're starting with more expertise.
Okay.
We had to develop the expertise before we could do it. They're starting with that. Essentially, they already have canon. They're not adding to canon. We had to create canon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to add, just piggyback on that. If you look at the function of Minecraft, when we started, how many people got to think of themselves as game designers? It was a very small group, well represented here. Now, because of games like Minecraft and many other examples, going all the way back to the construction set games and stuff, there's generations who think of themselves as creators who are both qualified, prepared, and able and welcome to do that. That intention creates a much more diverse range of approaches, opinions, which I think adds up to your optimism, in my view, about as an art form where we're going. So that's to connect those two
Well,
ideas.
And there's also the question of, our monkeys they're not on typewriters, they're not even on word processors, and the acceleration is pretty immense that they can put out more stuff. And we're talking infinite anyway, but they'll put out all that garbage. You only need one or two really great things that can kind of lead the way. I mean, I'll just throw out, has anybody here played Gorogoa on the phone? It's been out for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. Really unusual game. I thought it was going to be the start of a whole genre, but it was so unusual and sort of fresh that it's kind of hard to imagine, I guess, anybody else figuring out how to make it. Yeah, Gorogoa, just recognize it. It won a bunch of awards. Grogoa. GRO.
GRRO.
Send us the link. Send us the link.
Yeah.
I'm not good at this.
So what's wrong with,
Well, I just wanted to say that I think there's a whole bunch of stuff going that is probably even gone out there that could be really interesting. And it's just going to take a while for enough people to say, oh yeah, what they missed was this one, extra level that would make this amazing. So because there's just so much more to chomp on, and an infinite number of people, an infinite number of possibilities to spread it.
so you acted like,
The million monkeys should not have been said because these are, as we said before that, which is that they're more knowledgeable. Your point is, and you said it much better, that there's so much great stuff coming out. Sorry, Will.
so you said it like it was terrible that people would like make a game that they've already played. How do you get started? You make a game you've already played.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter what first game they make or what second game they make. The ones that stick with it, the market forces alone will drive them to do something different. So what we have is more experiment. So we do have more monkeys, but they're experimenting monkeys who actually know something about what they're doing.
And they know way more than we did when we started monkeying around.
They have more play hours than we do at this point. Right? Because we're actually professionals. We don't have time to play games all day long, right? And even back when we played games, there were only so many games to play and so many hours to play them, right? My kids both have far more than 10,000 hours playing games, far more, in their mid-20s. Yeah, my son probably has 3 or 4 times that. Just because he would give up sleep to play games.
Well, you brought up the point of AI and systems like that are just going to explore known space. But if you look at evolution has 2 operators. There's genetic crossover and mutation.
Yeah.
Genetic crossover actually is exploring the interior space between 2 phenotypes. It tends to bring that cloud in until you're inbreeding. Mutation is this thing that actually explores the outer, unexplored boundaries. Those 2 things have to be balanced in some sense.
Yeah.
And I think you have to kind of figure out.
Yep.
And I want to add the epigenetics. The environment makes genes express differently, and our environment's changing all the
It's a
freaking time.
biotic environment they're evolving in. That determines the fitness landscape.
Right. Well, but it also makes, in the epigenetic sense,
Right.
it can make a gene express differently than it would in one environment versus another.
Yeah.
So it's not like the gene. Yeah, it's more of that interior space, but it's bigger because of the
Evolution
environment.
discovered that trick too.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's like,
A combination.
Or there can be, the industry's always been closely linked to new technologies, and CD-ROM drives being sold by Mist.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that there might well be some game on Apple's new platform that will suddenly get everybody interested in AR glasses.
and I've got one more good bit of news for you. So if you think about how much work we had to do to make anything happen and how worried we were about making money, so how we kind of limited the way we thought about things. But if that cost is 0, then you're going to get people go, God, I wonder what it would be like to be a pine needle falling from a tree. Try it. Oh, no. And I think you're going to get thought seeing and innovation actually became more accessible and important since the cost of failure is going to get very low.
That's a good point.
Oh, and the value of novelty very high.
Yeah.
It's very high.
Actually, Noah makes another point, which indirectly was Goa, which is there may be original and great. There are a number of original and great games that have not yet been discovered because they did not solve the discoverability problem, or they didn't get the match to the market, but they will be worth exhuming.
Yeah.
For at least the.
We started to see it happen, at least I did. In the first generation of mobile games were lots of things that were ideas from a previous generation being recast, either coin-op or PC games. I noticed them all the time. It's like, oh, I know where that came from. I know where that came from.
There's a lot of retro
Pretty common.
gaming of just taking our old
What's
stuff.
interesting about other media businesses is there are journeys of rediscovery that occur in all of them. That I wonder if that's an important part of this. That we talk about the fact we have a hard time with our archives. The folks who, let me give you an example. Who here knows who the Replacements are? The band The Replacements?
Sure.
So they're a relatively obscure pseudo-punk band from Minneapolis. I went to junior high school with the drummer from that band. I had no idea until last year that was true. But anyway, they couldn't get fucking arrested. They're famous for being the best band that never broke. But in 2017, they got back together and they did reunion concerts with 60,000 people when last time they got 6. What happened in the meantime? Their legend grew is what happened. And they were part of the Husker Du, Soul Asylum, part of Minneapolis punk that grew out. And they were just like the one that everybody thought was cool but didn't make it. They got kind of rediscovered. All of Westerberg's songs went everywhere. If you look kind of between 2017 and 2020, about 1 in every 10 songs that charted in the independents was a Westerberg or a recast replacement song. So the question is, will somebody go back and rediscover Mule or Archon or who knows what and revitalize it for this market? I think there are a lot of those opportunities that people go looking. And what has definitely been true now is it is possible for an individual fan to pick up that mantle and carry it to the complete top of the mountain when that was not good before.
Yes.
I think I have a way of reconciling the optimistic versus the pessimistic type of the future. And that, you know what a similarity graph is? It's, imagine a 100-dimensional graph with each dimension representing some component of game design. And so we take it and we measure, and this game falls here, and that game is there, another one. We start populating it with games, and we get this volume that is full of games. And if you're close to it and you look at it, you say, oh, wow, look, here's one over here on the edge. And there's another one that moved out even further from the edge. And you see, we're expanding, and volume this is great. I look at it and I say, okay, yeah, here's volume. But, here's trust and betrayal. And there's balance of power. And Lemort d'Artour is over here. And so I look at it and say, God, they're so crowded together in this little bitty space. And so it depends, I think, on your perception of what is a game. Or, clearly these are games.
You can't. There's no general purpose jobs anymore. So I don't know.
I look at this and say, why hasn't anybody copied balance of power yet?
Because nuclear war is no longer a problem.
Well, it depends on power.
Yeah.
So there's a perception issue here. I look at what could be.
Well, wait a minute. Aren't all the Fallout games what happens after you lose balance of power?
Steve, you're about 3 years out of date, by the way. Nuclear war's back on the table.
You said several times that you have been proudly ignorant of most of the stuff out there.
Yeah.
So we're telling you that the optimists here are telling you that they're great games, and we're admitting actually that we're taking it probably on faith because we're too, as Gordon said, we're too busy to do it. But we've seen so many great games.
Okay.
I mean, again, going back to Noah saying Gorogoa, there are probably 100 Gorogoas out there and we probably have 1,000 or 20 of them.
So are you saying where I see this represents my ignorance, and there actually are things way out here as far
That
out
you've
as
never
the
seen.
radar tour.
Yes.
So they're not on the
Okay.
ground.
That's true for all of us.
Obviously not as dense as that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you
I
say
can
it's like
accept
10
that.
out of 100. I think it's more like 10 out of 10,000.
I was trying to get him to buy it.
No, I'm serious. So, Chris, you should start cataloging all the games tomorrow because we need that graph.
But isn't part of it too? I mean, I think in some ways we're having like kind of two different conversations. Like one part's about like, is it great for the consumer? You betcha.
Yeah,
I'm optimistic as hell. I got more shows to watch than ever, more games to play than ever. I think where the pessimism side comes in is like, well, how are people going to make a living doing it?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's where we're getting some, friction between.
Get a real job
in
and
my
do it as a
mind.
hobby again.
Well, we're all going to be on universal basic income and play games all day, and it's going to be great.
Well, on that note, I promised we'd be done by 5, and it's about 20 after. So, you guys need a chance to rebuild your minds after today's discussion. I want to say this has really been one of the best discussions of game design issues that I've ever participated in. You guys are great. Tomorrow we will.
Thank you for putting
balance
that
that
on.
So, all I could see was in the back of my head when I got the note was where is that guy, Sid, and Danny Button sitting on, I think, his floor playing 7 Cities of Gold, I think.
The lovely game.
And Sid
Oh, I love that game.
saying, that'll never work about 10 times. But I just love that Danny's playing a game that he hasn't even released yet. And
Yeah.
Danny and Sid are trying to figure out how to make it better. That was, to my mind, the highlight of the original GDC is that kind of stuff.
That's you missed those early GDCs for that.
You did with the couch holding court.
He did, yeah. It was awesome. I loved it.
In the next episode, the conversation shifts to large language models and their potential impacts.